All right, you've built your first web page. Now it's time to write your first program. Or maybe not your first program, depending on what classes you've taken before, but you get the idea. Your first web-based program, right? You do this later. I'm going to go ahead over to my Explorer here and open my folder. I want to get into my WebDev folder. Show you how I do this again. Okay. And I'm in my WebDev folder, and I see my WebDev files, including the HTML and the style sheet we were working on last time. So now we're going to bring in one more element to our work here. And as I told you before, we have HTML, which is the stuff. We have CSS, which is how the stuff looks. Now we want to know how the stuff acts and how we interact with the stuff. So we're going to make a new file here. We're going to call it script.js. And you'll notice again a new icon, right? Because now Visual Studio or VS Code recognizes that this is a JavaScript file by the JS ending we gave it. And let's say we want to write some code. Let's say we want to print something out that we can then read after this runs in the browser. So when you want to print something out in the browser, and it's not going to print in the screen of the browser, it's going to print in the console of the browser, which is in our inspect elements screen, which I'll show you in a little bit. You type console.log, you open up parentheses, you do quotations, and now we're going to type what we want to the log to the console. We'll go ahead and do hello world again. Now, we save that, Command S. I'm going to open my HTML in my browser in Chrome. So I'm going to come over here and I'm just going to right click, open with Chrome. I'm going to inspect the page. I'm going to go to my console and nothing. I don't see anything. Well, much like our CSS, our JavaScript needs to be linked to our HTML to run. Unlike our CSS, we're actually going to link our JavaScript down towards the bottom because generally speaking, you're going to want your JavaScript to run after everything in the web page is already built. Unlike the styling, you want your interpreter, the browser in this case, to know the style while it's building the page. In this case, we want the JavaScript to run after the page is built. So we're going to do it down here. And if you guessed that we have another tag for this, you're right. It's the script tag. And the script tag has an attribute src, which stands for source. And the source, you might have imagined, is our script.js file. Unlike our link on the top for the style sheet, this does have a closing tag, so we want to include that. The VS Code will do it for you automatically if you just hit enter. Here is what that should look like. We can, if we want to, write JavaScript right in between these script tags and run it. It's just not a good method for doing that, and it doesn't keep our code as organized as we'd like it. When we have these three different files, it's much easier to see this is where the JavaScript is, this is where the CSS is, this is where the HTML is. Again, even CSS, it could all be done in one file. It's just not a good way of doing it. So we do these three files, and we link them in this way. So we have this script tag now. We save, we come over here, we rerun, and you'll notice in our console here, it says hello world. We are logging to our console hello world. It doesn't change what appears on the actual page, but it shows us here in the console. And it even tells us where this is coming from. This is coming from the file script.js on line 1. This becomes important for debugging purposes. If we have errors later on, this can tell us what file is that error happening in and what line is that error happening on. While we're here with the console, let me take a few minutes to show you that we can actually write JavaScript right here in our console if we want. Oh, no, sorry, console, nope, console.log. And we can log something to the console. And I'm going to show you other things we can do in the console too, other things we can do in JavaScript, but I just wanted to show you that if you needed to test something or check for something, you can do it quickly here in the console by typing in JavaScript and hitting enter, and it will run the JavaScript right there if you want. But that's not what we're doing for our purposes. I just wanted to show you that. You can actually clear the console. We can just do that, I think. Yeah, Is the console's clear? Excellent. Okay, so let's go back to our JavaScript for a second, and let's think about what other things we might want to be able to do in JavaScript. Now, I'm going to introduce you to a really important concept when it comes to programming, and that's the concept of the variable. If you've taken math classes, including algebra, you have heard of variables before. You've heard of them as unknowns in equations that oftentimes we're solving for, right? X plus 5 equals 7. X in that case is 2. X squared minus 9 equals 0. Okay, well in that case, X could be 3 or negative 3, right? So we have these ideas of variables where we're solving for unknowns. In programming, it's not quite the same. In programming, we're going to declare variables in order to store information for us. And the way that we do that is we use the let keyword, and then we give the variable a name. And one of the a quote I like about programming is that one of the hardest and most important things to do in programming is to name your variables. And I'm going to pause for a second to say why that is. If I were to write a program, and let's say name a variable X, and then put my name in it, and later on, much later on, well away from this page, I was to log that variable, no one would have any idea what this line, this console.log X, was doing, right? Because X is a terrible variable name when it comes to programming, most cases. We want much more descriptive names. Long and descriptive names, they seem tedious at first, end up being really valuable in programming. So instead of X, let's call this let my name equal Mr. Huber, and I'm going to log to the console my name. Now I want you to notice a couple of differences here. In my first console.log command, I have hello world in quotes, and hello world is what printed out to the console. Here I have Mr. Huber in quotes, and I have it equal, being stored in, if you want to think about it like that, the variable my name. Think of variables like a box that's storing information, right? When I console.log, I'm not putting quotes around my name. If I did put quotes around my name, and I saved it, and I ran it, I'm going to get literally we call this a string literal. I'm going to get literally my name printed out to the console, the word my underscore name. But if I take those quotes away, now I am not referring to a string my name. I am referring to a variable which is storing a string which has Mr. Huber inside of it. So let's go ahead and save that. Let's go ahead and rerun it. And you'll notice now it says Mr. Huber because that's what's stored inside of my name. We can also, one of the nice things about variables and their power in programming is the fact that they are variable. They can be changed. Let's say I wanted to change my name now to be Robert, my first name, and I wanted to instead log that. I can log my name again, but this time I'm going to get a different result. So look at this code for a second and see if you can predict what we're going to see in the console here. I bet you can. Think about it line by line if you're moving through what's going to get printed out. I'm going to save. I'm going to go back to my console. I'm going to hit refresh, and I get hello world, Mr. Huber, Robert. Even though both times I'm writing the same thing. I'm writing console.log my name, console.log my name. In between those two times, I am reassigning a different value to the variable my name. If I didn't want that to be able to happen, I can use a different keyword called const. Const is short for constant, which means this can't be changed now. This should stay the same, and you shouldn't be changing it. Let's go ahead and save and see what happens. We now get an error. Remember I said this is going to be a good opportunity for debugging? Well, we can see an error, and we can see right where the error is happening. The error is happening in script.js on line 7, and it says assignment to constant variable. Now that seems confusing, constant variable. But what it means is a constant is trying to get a new value assigned to it. And that's happening right here in script.js on line 7. And we can see that error, and we could address it by either changing this back to let or not trying to change the value of our variable. If we do that, we've addressed the issue, we run it, we have working code again. Variables don't have to just be strings. Strings are one way we can interpret variables. You can also have variables be numbers. You can do math with variables. Here, let's take the variable my name. Let's add 3 to it, and let's store it back in my name. So my name is 7.3. We should see 7.3 printed out here. We're going to take the my name variable and assign to it the my name value plus 3. So 7.3 plus 3 should be 10.3. And we should see that printed out here. Let's see. And here we have 7.3 and 10.3. So you can do math inside of variables. We could even simply console.log my name plus 7. We can even do the math right here in the console.log and still get a valid result printing out here. So that's kind of the power of variables, right? They allow us to store values and then manipulate those values later on in our program. But this isn't very interesting, right? This is kind of static, and the JavaScript we're doing isn't really affecting our page. If I were to change my JavaScript and load my page, it loads the same every time. There's nothing really that interesting happening yet. So let's take it up a notch and let's make this a little bit more interesting. I'm going to erase all this. I'm going to make a new variable. Let your name equal. I want to assign this something, but I want to get the information from the user. And there's a special function we can use for that called prompt, which if I start typing, you'll see here. It's that first one there. I'm going to open parentheses on prompt, and I want to draw your attention to this information right here. This is what we call the doc string. And the doc string will tell you about the code you're about to write and what kind of things it expects and what kind of things it does. So in terms of what it expects, that's right here in between these parentheses. That's kind of what kind of information are you going to hand this? Really, with prompt, what we want is we want to hand it a string, a message, as it were, to say to the user. So I might put, please input your name. Something like that. What it returns, what is going to come out of this function, is also a string, and we've asked it to store as your name. We're going to save that little bit of code. We're going to come back here, and we're going to inspect our page. We're going to look at the console just so we're looking at it while we're doing this. Let's go ahead and reload, and look. We get this page says, please input your name. We get this very nifty little input box. I'm going to write Mr. Huber, and let's see what happens. The rest of the page loads, and nothing happens in my console. Why did nothing happen in my console? Well, let's go look back at my code. I stored this information in a variable, but I never did anything with that variable. And in fact, if I were to write your name, you'll see the variable is actually stored in the console here. The console knows about the variable we made. Let's go ahead and tab and hit enter and see what it comes out. It spits out Mr. Huber. And just to prove to you that it's taking this information, I can type gobbledygook string in there, hit OK, come back to my console, look for your name, and the gobbledygook is there, right? So it is storing it. It's just not doing anything afterwards. So let's go ahead and have our code do something with it afterwards. Let's go ahead and say, okay, console.log, I'd love to know what your name is. And in fact, wouldn't it be nice if we greeted you? So let's do console.log. Hi, your name. It's going to be on 2 different lines. I'll show you in the future how we can fix that a little bit. But let's go ahead and see what that looks like. And actually, I should put a little comma in there, right? Go ahead and refresh. Mr. Huber. Hit OK. It says, hi, Mr. Huber. Look at that. It's greeting me. My own page is greeting me. Wonderful. And this is a fully functioning program. You have written a JavaScript program that runs in the browser when we do our code. So here is your coding challenge. This is a little bit more, this might take a little bit more time and it's a little tricky, but here's what I'd like you to do. We're gonna make a tip calculator right here in our console. So we're gonna ask our user to please enter the bill amount. Actually, let's not do that. Let's do, because that's going to require a little bit more work. Let's have the user enter your favorite color. So have the user enter their favorite color and then tell them your favorite color and let's say something about their favorite color. So like, for instance, you might say console.log let's say your favorite color is, then print out their favorite color and then tell them your favorite color. My favorite color is blue, right? So here you're gonna have them, I want you to log in the console their favorite color, and then I want you to log in the console your favorite color. So we're going to take input, we're going to log that their favorite color is in the console, and then actually log what their favorite color is, and then we're going to log our favorite color and tell them about that. Okay, so we're taking input from the user and we're going to do something with that input. When you're done, go ahead and turn that in to the assignment place on my Cassidy.